Ladies and gentlemen, the fan base is divided. The journalists are out in numbers protecting Graham Potter, which is absolutely fine. But there's two questions in my mind that I need to have some sort of, clearance, some sort of view as to what's going on. And I hope you guys can help me out with that.
All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin.
All right, welcome back to the other side of the coin, ladies and gentlemen. Look, not much in terms of news that's gone around, but it's more of the unsettlement in the Chelsea fan base at the moment, and lots of journalists, lots of transfer pundits coming out and making their statements and how we should be patient and whatnot. That's fine. That's all okay. We're going to look into a couple of those. Obviously, Ben Jacobs he has come out with a 10-page thread. We're not going to go through all of that. We're going to touch on a few things that he stated. Look, you need to be rational. You need to be logical in this moment. But at the same time, you need to be able to ask the tough questions as well. I think the divide at the moment that you see in the fan base, especially in the social media world, specifically in Twitter, is one side that is already fed up with Graham Potter, wants things changed, and reminiscing Thomas Tuchel. I'm not the one that's wanting Graham Potter out. I do definitely reminisce, the moments that we've had with Thomas Tuchel, but you've got one side that is extreme to the point they want Potter out, and then you've got the other side which is extreme that no, Potter stays. We're going to have to go through all sorts of pain. It's only going to get worse till it gets better. Now, I feel like there needs to be some sort of middle ground. I don't believe that we need to go through so much pain, so much so that we go below 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever the case is. I don't think currently what we are seeing in terms of 5 Premier League matches without a win, 3 Premier League losses in a row. If you catch the Carabao Cup loss to Man City, that's 4 losses in a row. I don't think even during a process rebuild that can be tolerated. I know right now there is not much we can do. Right now we can't just go up to Graham Potter's office and say, you know what, see ya. But there are certain things I think the ownership, if they're serious, they're noting it down and they should be having conversations with Graham Potter during this break. I think it's about 42 or 40 something days until Premier League comes back again. As much as us fans need to forget about what's been going on and focus on the World Cup, enjoy the World Cup, but at the same time, I think Graham Potter should use these 40, 42 days, whatnot, as a way to try and understand Chelsea as well. It shouldn't just be all about us being patient. It shouldn't just be all about just focus on the project and let's see where it takes. No, I think this is a time where Graham Potter needs to realize this isn't Brighton Football Club. Having this type of a run in Brighton probably doesn't get questioned too often. Brighton hierarchies are probably thinking, look, we played against some of the top teams and we probably were favourites to lose. We'll move on. We'll pick up the points against the lower teams. No, at Chelsea Football Club, you need to be able to be competitive. That lineup against Newcastle, that's shocking. That's still playing in my mind to the fact that how were we able to win? Like, how are we going to win with that type of a lineup? So things like that. And there's been plenty other stuff like in terms of in-game management, picking the players consistently that have not been performing and the ones that show some sort of performance off the bench, not getting an opportunity. So look, two questions that are floating around in my mind, and I want you guys to help me out. One, I think it's a legitimate question, and I've seen other people like Eunice and Matisse and so on and so forth sort of talk about this. Specifically Eunice, is Graham Potter the right man for the rebuild? Now, This is a legitimate question. You don't need to, once again, you don't need to be extreme about it. You can definitely ponder and discuss the situation. Graham Potter's time at Brighton, it took time. It didn't materialize overnight. It took literally 3 seasons to get to where we are right now with Brighton Football Club, the way they're playing. But then again, at Brighton, the expectation was never to win trophies or titles, this, that, the other. It's always about, I'm pretty certain, surviving. And then if you can come mid table, and now this season, maybe they're probably pondering about perhaps getting some sort of a European position. So the pressure over there, the expectation, it's different. Expectation drives pressure. And if your expectation isn't, you know, at a high caliber, obviously the pressure is not going to be around that much. The pressure was different over there, the pressure of probably losing the job, but it should be the same in Chelsea Football Club. Having said that, he's got a long-term contract, so I don't know how much pressure he's got at Chelsea at the moment. However, there is a legitimate question to be asked in regards to him being at Chelsea right now, in the sense that this isn't Brighton Football Club, man. You can't be going through 3 losses in a row like this. There is an minimum expectation to make top 4. So, what trust do we feel that Potter is the right guy? All we know that he's got a body of work at Brighton that shows that over a consistent period of time, he can make a football club play well. But is it a given? Is it a given at Chelsea Football Club? Is it a given? I don't know. So there is a question mark. I hope it turns around. I hope with all the different recruitments that we're doing off field helps him out. I hope we have a proper plan in January. I hope we have a proper plan in summer. But it's crucial. It's crucial that we still meet short-term goals. We cannot be going through pain, which I think everyone is okay to go through that. Everyone's okay to go through pain, but not pain where there doesn't seem to be any sort of solution. There doesn't seem to be any sort of light at the end of the tunnel. No one wants to go through that type of a pain. In these past few matches, granted, there's been injuries to key players. Granted, some of the players are probably thinking about the World Cup. But questions still will be asked. What gets done in training sessions? What do you do? How do you prepare for a game? It's like when you were at school, preparing for an exam. You don't prepare for an exam during the exam. Like at the exam time, it's when you showcase your skill, showcase your talent, and everything that you've worked hard for comes into fruition. If you haven't worked hard, you're not going to do well. It's like match day. You don't try and try out new ideas during match day. You try out the new ideas, you try out different skills, different training methods at training. And then when you come to the match day, you try and execute that to the best way possible. And when I watch some of the matches that we've been playing lately, we look clueless. We look clueless. And I feel like saying we shouldn't be looking this clueless. We can lose. That's okay. We can lose. But we shouldn't be looking clueless. So that's one thing. The other side, the second question is, look, it is true that there are certain players that probably don't deserve to stick around at Chelsea Football Club. We need to make good assessment. It isn't fair to expect Graham Potter to do well when some of the players have a scrambled mindset or they don't want to stick around at Chelsea Football Club. It's difficult to motivate them. It's difficult to implement your plan. It's difficult to, set out your ideas when some players will simply not buy in. So that side of the spectrum is also true. There are players that we need to focus during January, and we need to be ruthless. As much as we want incomings, we need to be very ruthless in terms of outgoings. Now, I'm not going to sit here and name which players need to go, this, that, the other. We can do a different show on that. But there is definitely players You can see it in the mentality. You can see it in their attitude. You can see it, um, you know, in their demeanor. It's they clearly don't want to be around, and you can see it. The fact the lineups that the manager is picking, certain players just don't get picked often enough. Do they need to be moved on? So these two things go together. One, Graham Potter needs to understand. He needs to learn as well. It's not just about us fan based learning. It's not just about him needing time, this, that, the other. He needs to understand the magnitude of the job. Todd Bowley, the owners need to understand as well. They talk about communication, they talk about collaboration. They need to sit down with Graham Potter during this break and really hone in and evaluate what has happened, review where can they be better. Graham Potter once again coming post-match against Newcastle saying the boys gave it their best. He needs to stop saying that kind of stuff. One, it irritates the fan base. And this is what I mean. He does not understand Chelsea completely as yet. And that's fine. It's only been a couple of months. I don't expect him to understand. But he needs to slowly figure out how the fan base operates, what the club is all about. It's about winning titles, man. I've not heard Graham Potter often enough speaking about we need to be competing for trophies down the track. And this is the huge difference between a manager like Graham Potter, who I respect a lot, who's got a lot of good about him, but he doesn't know much about winning trophies as opposed to, some of the previous managers that we've had. So this is the big difference. Let's have a look at some of the news that's floating around, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be interesting to see what people are saying. Fabrizio Romano, all people at Chelsea know that this will take time. It takes time to bring in new ideas, new manager, new methods, and of course, the new directors who will join the club in 2023. It's part of the rebuilding. Everything is new at Chelsea. We're only a few months into this new era. I think this World Cup break comes at a good time for them. It's an opportunity to restart, understand the new vision, and work hard for it. So, look, completely agree everything Fabrizio Romano is saying here. But I hope once Premier League kick starts again and the January window's around, I hope we have a proper plan where Graham Potter is heavily involved as well. This was apparently one of the reasons why Thomas Tuchel was sacked. He wasn't involved, often enough in the transfer market, apparently, as per notes from our new owners. I hope Graham Potter is involved, along with all those other recruitments we've made off field. And we have a proper plan. We have a proper plan for January as to who we want to bring in, who we want to let go. And I need to start seeing some progress. This whole thing about trust the process. The process can only be trusted if we see some development, not instrumental development like huge developments game in, game out. No, incremental, little bits and pieces. Over this last few matches, I think Graham Potter has been manager of Chelsea Football Club for only 14 games. I get it. But this last 6-7 matches, I don't see any improvement. In fact, it's probably been a very big decline. It's very important, even during process, that there is incremental improvements. And if there is a dip, it's a short dip and then it's back into the saddle. Look at what Man United's doing, man. They just beat Fulham in the final minutes today as well. And they've been picking up wins like that. Yeah, they've had losses in between, but they consider them as blips, and then they try and get back into the saddle. We need to be able to do that. We at the moment are in a rut. And yes, the World Cup is timely. The break is timely. What do we do with the break? Very, very important. This is what Ben Jacobs had to say. I'm not going to go through the entire thread. It's a lot of things that he's talked about. That's the other thing. Just a slight little note. Whenever there's English managers, there seems to be a whole heap of long-threaded explanations and logic that gets thrown around how you need to back the manager. And I just feel like, where were all these threaded information for non-English managers? And there is a clear bias. There is a clear bias. And I get it. It's English Premier League, English managers, English journalists. Obviously, you're going to back your countrymen, so why not? A few Chelsea fans calling for Graham Potter to be sacked, which is ridiculous. Chelsea are trying to move away from this kind of cutthroat approach. Potter is a long-term appointment who hasn't had key players available or a transfer window at the club. Look, as I said in my review yesterday, post the Newcastle game, the idea of letting go of Potter is ridiculous. Now, I appreciate if you think that way, but the fact remains he's on a 6-year contract, 12 million a year, or 5-year contract, 12 million a year. Sacking him is going to financially hurt the football club a lot. Now, some people will say, "Me, how do you know, man? Top Bolly seems to be throwing money." I get it, but surely that's a lot of money to give out as compensation and then hire another manager. And it's not just the compensation. Don't forget, we paid 20 million or something like that to get Graham Potter out of Brighton as well. There's no way this is going to happen. And also, not giving him the opportunity to see some transfer windows and be able to at least give some time to build his philosophy, it's not going to happen. However, as I said, how long? How much do you see this? Where is the end point in terms of the decline? Because what are we now? 8th in the Premier League. So where is it? How long do you endure a decline until you go, do you know what? Have we done the right thing? Have we done the right thing? So obviously now it's too early. Is end of January time to sort of talk about it? Or is it end of February? Or is it end of this season where you sort of make an assessment? And by then, maybe we could be 10th. I don't know. Unless we miraculously turn everything around, which I hope we do, and end up being 4th or the top 4 somehow. So something to think about, definitely. It takes time to implement a new style, culture, and perhaps most importantly for long-term success, recruitment model. The senior leadership team at Chelsea is still being built, fixing many problems that predated them. Granted, some will call sacking Thomas Tuchel a problem of their own making, hence the lack of patience amongst the few with Potter, but the ownership group and Tuchel had strategic differences that proved untenable and started as early as pre-season. The sanctions and super speed sale created a period of instability impacting not just internal mood, but setting back Chelsea's window planning that not only affected last summer, but could influence January and next summer. See, no, I can't have that. It cannot influence January and next summer. We need to rectify that. We cannot have another flop window or a not thought out window. Chelsea are behind rivals for Jude Bellingham, for example. I mean, look, Jude Bellingham is not the only midfielder that's available. We need to be preparing, finding solutions. We have to. So, look, there's a lot more that's going on in this thread, but obviously we're not going to go through it. It's pretty much what we've talked about. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you the 2 questions that I had in my mind. 1, is Potter the right profile for the rebuild? He may be a very, very good manager, which we've seen in Brighton, but is he the guy for the rebuild at Chelsea Football Club, a club like Chelsea Football Club, who've got history of winning? Whereas Brighton, the pressure isn't that. And you may very well say, yeah, no, he is the right person, and that's absolutely fine. But give me your reasons in the comment section. And secondly, do you also believe that the players that we have right now probably don't do justice to Graham Potter? They've been able to sack Lampard. They've been able to sack, Thomas Tuchel, and they're not performing for Graham Potter as well. So there is that factor too. And how much do you value that? Please comment below. If you've enjoyed this video, smash the like button. If you're here for the first time, subscribe, hit the bell notification to stay in touch with all my content. I shall hopefully see you guys for a live. We'll see what we want to talk about. Maybe the latest Chelsea news. There's some news floating around Mason Mount, so we may do a live on that. And then obviously the World Cup's coming around, so I'm going to start doing a series for the World Cup where I will follow all the Chelsea players and also any blockbuster matches as well. So we'll talk all about that very, very soon. Until next time, see ya.